let's push on and talk about Nintendo. First and foremost, we had just a quick report and something that they were kind of really focusing on in terms of their development as a a company, a brand. Their president Furukawa, he said in the most recent investor Q&A, and he's been harping on this for a while, that Nintendo's focused on hiring new graduates and experienced professionals into Nintendo versus acquisitions and straight up buying new companies through M&A to introduce into their portfolio. They want to develop people who understand the Nintendo brand within the company and just integrate people that way. So first and foremost, let's stop on that and talk about their process. How do you feel about what their approach is when it comes to introducing talent into the Nintendo brands?
I think that makes sense, because that way you have a good starting point, as opposed to somebody who was making the best example was the Rocksteady shit. Like, hey, we are experienced making this. Well, Warner Brothers wants that. So you gotta have this point of friction, and now you have to try to find a way of compromising. Whereas hey, we're gonna bring you in, we're gonna teach you our ways, and we're just gonna have you work on shit. And taking care of your developers is also very important too, because that's a point that I think is if you keep these people on and you keep these people working for you, and they just know the brand, they know the company, they know what they're doing. You are more likely to succeed with them than bringing in random new people who succeeded in their own by themselves doing their own shit, and now you want them to do something for you. It's just not, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. So them bringing in new graduates and experienced people outside of acquiring full-on studios, because instead of acquiring studios, why don't you just pay them to make you shit, right? Why are you buying them outright when you can just say, hey, I'd rather just buy the milk. Buying the milk, I think, is cheaper than buying the cow, and that's something that Xbox just bought way too many cows when they should have just been paying for milk. Really.
Yeah. And I'll kind of say my piece on this and then segue into this bigger conversation I wanted to talk about as well. But yeah, Nintendo has the right idea. I think they have the right idea with this, and I think this is a very, very solid strategy of just if you drip feed people and you drip feed talent and really nurture the talent into understanding what Nintendo's all about, the different teams, guiding them to where their talents will shine the best, and also they'll have the best understanding to carry projects forward and carry creativity forward in different ways to again make great titles, make great things happen at the company. I think they're onto it again, just kind of going through straight war of attrition and just buying up and doing war instead of doing a cultural exchange. Is I don't know why that's an example to me, but it's instead of just trying to wipe through a whole country and stuff like that and tear everything down and just take the resources and pillage from it, actually exchanging with that to create a steady flow of enrichment instead of just trying to take it and go from there. I feel like that's a pretty apt example, or at least an apt parallel to what I've seen at how Nintendo approaches their talent development and how they approach their portfolio stuff. For the most part, they have acquired stuff, in the past, of course. No, every company has, but what's it called, in comparison to things like Sony, in comparison to things like Microsoft and Xbox, they have taken the route of very calm, sustainable exchange and integration into their environments, rather than kind of the straight chop down tree, take the tree home and figure out how to grow a tree, that Sony and Xbox have employed. But that brings me to this further conversation of looking at this week, looking at the moves that Xbox, Microsoft, Sony have made. Nintendo was ahead of the curve. Nintendo was right about this thing. I want to preface this conversation with this first. None of these companies are perfect. Before we get into talking about this, none of these companies are perfect. I saw a tweet the other day that, these are the two big companies. They do no wrong. They have good business practices, only good business, no bad business practices. They drop great games and they shut up. They said Steam and they said Nintendo, and I almost smacked my monitor straight on, head on, bro. I almost smacked my monitor clean off the desk. I was like, are you serious? Steam has already had its litany of own issues. You can Google them if you please, bro, but having that big of a domination over the PC launcher market and stuff like that comes with its own problems. You can be the judge of that, but Steam ain't no saint. Let's get that started. Nintendo, we only had to go into the beginnings of how they don't care about, again, most of their fan base with esports. They don't care about setting up tournaments and stuff like that. They shut half of them shits down. Their online still sucks. There's still issues with Nintendo and how they build out their entire brand, their entire offering in terms of gaming. But let's get one thing straight. with their development pipeline, with the internal, with protecting and fostering value for their IPs, for their games. They were ahead of the curve. For presentation of these games, they've been ahead of the curve for at least, I want to say 11 years. What was the first Direct? 2012, 2013?
Something like that.
Yeah, they've been ahead of the curve since then. They've been ahead of that curve since then. The Wii U does not count. Again, I've said this before on Twitter, and I will exclude it again. The Wii U was just, I don't know what happened with the Wii U. That's why I said they're not perfect. But they've been ahead of the curve. And with that, the key word has been sustainability. Sustainability. Not looking for, oh, what's the highest peak of revenue we can reach? How can we keep churning out growth every month? Things don't continually grow. You know what I mean? Things that continually grow are usually not that good in the end. You know what I'm saying? Like you can automatically Google things that continually grow that aren't healthy for you and stuff like that. That's probably not a far jump for you to make, guys. Go Google that if you need to. But like, the goal, in my opinion, should be sustainability, and Nintendo, at least on the gaming and development front of talent, have exemplified that on many different fronts. When shit got tough, so Iwata sat there and said, yo, I'm gonna cut my salary to make sure these people is all good, because this is our talent. These are people who make the money back for us, so we're gonna protect them. He took that salary pay cut. He did that. The teams never really changed, or there's never been too many big shakeups. Like, again, the stats here say from the reports and stuff, Nintendo Japan, they have a 98.8% retention rate. For every 100 people that leave that company, one person leaves. For every people that join, one person leaves. You know how solid that is? You know how good that is? Like, in an industry where turnover, where studio closures, where just absolute hellfire on the people who make games great is commonplace, Nintendo has done very well to show we can be sustainable, we can be healthy, we can create great games and not sacrifice our developers in the process. We don't have to sacrifice the key ingredient that makes our games great to make great games. We don't have to be in this constant cycle of pain to create great stuff. They've been ahead of the curve on a lot of different fronts, and it all leads back to sustainability. Again, not wasting so many resources and launching Nintendo Direct so they don't have to be everywhere all at once. They can announce stuff on their own time because they're that big. At first, we all laughed at it. We were like, yo, why you not at E3? You know what I'm saying? Y'all bugging out. Why you're not at E3? And it ends up being the fact that they were ahead of the curve. Everybody drops their own showcases now, and nobody cares about E3. There's only Jeff Keighley sit down there with Kojima and stuff like that every summer and shit. Like, they were ahead of the curve. Their development pipelines and dropping things how they do, again, they're not perfect, but they are sustainable. And that's what a lot of these companies need to hope to achieve. They need to strive to be that sustainable. So just wonder, how do you feel about that? How do you feel about what I'm saying?
No, I agree with what you're saying. I think growth is important, but it should not be the end all be all. And I also think that it's like the way it's seen in a lot of these spaces, and especially in video games, is like, if we're not growing at a certain rate, then we're failing. And I just don't think that that's true. Even though this is video games are more mainstream, it is still very much a niche. There's still a lot of people that I come into my day-to-day where I'll talk about video games. They're like, oh yeah, I don't engage with it at all, really. I don't really care that much. It's not like movies, it's not like TV where like you just need to put a movie in front of somebody and then they're gonna start really being into movies. Like, it's not like that at all. The barrier of entry is a little bit steeper than watching a movie or watching a TV show. You're not gonna be able to get all the people on the planet to play video games. So instead of fostering a culture and idea of trying to continuously expand, it is better to try to retain the people that are there while also expanding. And I think that's the difference between like Nintendo and a PlayStation, or actually Nintendo and an Xbox more specifically, that instead of trying to like buy up the competition and then have them like churn out games, like, it just doesn't really make sense. I do agree with you that Nintendo, when it comes to things that they're not in the forefront of, they do fall short, like esports, or even just like online services. Yeah. But like, they are definitely the beginners of like good development cycles and creating impactful games and like game development as a whole. They've been doing this shit for a while. So I think that when it comes to that type of shit, they know exactly what they're doing. Like when it comes to creating video games, they don't really, even the worst Nintendo games are fucking gems compared to the worst PlayStation and Xbox games. And while some Nintendo games, I've thought of many Nintendo games that have dropped with like issues. There are games that dropped on Sony and PlayStation and Xbox that just straight up don't work.
They're unplayable.
Right? Like it's awful, and they're working with better hardware too. So like I think Nintendo is somebody that, and like I said earlier in this episode, they're somebody who's made their own lane. They've realized that doing the shit that Xbox and Sony are doing is pointless when you can create your own market. Like with Nintendo, if Nintendo releases a bad game, Nintendo fans just don't buy it. If PlayStation releases a bad game, they may go buy an Xbox game, or they may go move over to that market because they know that they can. But Nintendo will drop a bad game and then fix it and then get that money back. Like the people on Nintendo's ecosystem are not moving. They're not shifting gears. There are a lot of people who will be like, I used to have an Xbox 360, then I switched over to PlayStation, or I had a PlayStation, then I switched over to an Xbox. But not many people say, oh, I was on my GameCube and then I just stopped playing Nintendo games altogether. Like no, even when they buy Xboxes or buy PS4s, they still buy the Switch. They still buy a 3DS. Like their community is very, very set in their ways, and it's a good thing for Nintendo. There are some things that conversations that need to be had about the things that Nintendo does. Like, hey, we're at like Pokemon 12. Where's the voice acting? Or like where are certain things that feel like should be standard in video games as a whole right now? Like where are the accessibility options? But what you can say about Nintendo is that they know what they're doing when it comes to developing video games. So I think that their call is something that honestly other people should really start taking note of. And I think that PlayStation and Xbox, I think PlayStation is more closer to Nintendo than Xbox is, because I think Xbox is just straight up buying shit for potential, whereas PlayStation kind of like nurtures shit then buys it. But even then, some of the calls PlayStation makes is just straight up corporate greed, and they need to start realizing that they need to foster shit and slow down their aggressive expansion and just keep creating quality shit. Because at the end of the day, that's what's really going to drive people to come to your market. It's not all the promises, it's actually executing. And like the good word of mouth goes so far, because that's really what sold Helldivers. It wasn't necessarily the marketing strategy. Don't get me, the marketing was great, but even when
the marketing was the word of mouth.
Yeah, like that's what I'm saying. Like even when we talked about it, seeing the trailers, we were like, oh, that game looks cool, but I was never gonna buy it at first. But when I hear all my friends talking about it, like that's what sold me. And that's really what I think a lot of these game developers don't realize, that you can put money into all these games, you can market them, you can give them to content creators, but if the game isn't good, it's just not gonna move. And to get to even that point to sell those good games, you need to have a good development cycle. You need to have people in your team that have been doing it for a long time and know how shit works. But
yep, and I want to piggyback back off that to say, with Sony specifically, there's that example of they were scrambling for a multiplayer game or whatever, said like, you know what, fuck it, just buy Bungie, fuck it, just buy Bungie. They have experience, I think they have Destiny, whatever we're gonna do, they'll fill that gap, let's make it happen. And they haven't bought them outright, but Sony, again, Bungie has been performing well. I don't think necessarily they've been I don't know what varying level of support that they've had for it, but like, is that going to solve the gap? But I feel like there might have been more than one studio in Sony's banner that could have produced a good multiplayer game if given the right amount of time. You know what I mean? Marathon, still the jury's out, and they just said, yeah, well, Marathon's another Bungie title, actually, not that, but what's it called? For example, I'll say something. Honestly, I'm not saying, damn, I just remembered. Fuck, I'm so mad. Last of Us Factions. Fuck, I thought I forgot that game. Fuck, oh my gosh, I'm mad all over again. If y'all gave that fucking game some time and not made it a live service to cash cow it and pimp it out, maybe you would have had a fun multiplayer experience that everybody wanted to play, and then you would have gotten some good word of mouth and a sustainable product from it. But no, you wanted to throw money at it. You wanted money to get generated. You want money trees. And that's not what gaming is. Oh my gosh. Oh yeah, how State of Decay pissed you off, that just pissed me off. I ain't gonna lie, that got me heated. Wow, that actually got me heated for a second. I can't even believe it. That's bullshit. No, man. Let me get off this point though. I will say that again, it all comes back to the value that's created from how consistent and nurtured the development process is, how well the developers are treated. If you look at another example, Capcom, look how good of a return Capcom has had since Resident Evil Biohazard. You know what I'm saying? They've been killing it, and they literally, as of this morning, they've dropped their record. They dropped their numbers and stuff. It's a record-breaking year for Capcom. Dragon's Dogma 2, Street Fighter 6 carryover and stuff from, you know what I'm saying, their fiscal and stuff. Resident Evil 4, Monster Hunter World. This is their 7th consecutive year of record high profit. This is the highest net sales that Capcom has ever had, and I think they've really taken a step back from Biohazard on, and they've really nurtured the IPs that they've been putting out, from the Monster Hunters to Resident Evil. Street Fighter 6 was one of the best fighting games we've ever seen, still is. You know what I'm saying? Even though it's lost, you know, prime traction or whatever, you can't debate how good that game is. You know what I'm saying? Dragon's Dogma 2, you could debate, you know, say how great that game is, whether it's gonna be in conversations, but still the hype that it generated, overall the gameplay is good. Like, they've had time to take a step back and focus in on what they need to develop, how they need to develop it, what the process is going to look like, take care of their own, and make some great shit. That's another prime example. Sustainability. They're in a sustainable spot, and then they're getting feedback from their player base of like, yo, what we could bring back some stuff. What could we bring back? Oh, we want to do some new stuff here. You know what I'm saying? With the next Monster Hunter or whatever, with the next new IP or blah blah blah. Like, they're on a great track. Capcom is only going to get bigger at this point because they've laid the foundation of sustainability and quality and taking care of their development processes. They've done that. They've done the work. They've done the work to cultivate inside their own instead of buy and automatically expect results. You know what I mean? Like, it's a difference. It's a difference, bro. And I feel like all of these companies need to take a step back and start looking at the sustainability picture. How do we cultivate this art? How do we cultivate this gaming space to be producing great stuff, a diverse array of stuff that captures the minds of so many different people, captures the fun, the spirit of what gaming is, and also how can we make it sustainable so that this process can be replicated, can be enriched over the next 100, 200 years without us having a critical fallout of XYZ Studios not even existing anymore. You know what I mean? Nintendo on this front is a blueprint. Nintendo was ahead of this curve the entire time. You know what I mean? They were ahead of this curve for at least the past decade, and everybody should be following suit when it comes to their treatment of their devs, how they view, you know what I'm saying, the development process, how they take care of their brand, and how they take care of talent to produce these games on such a consistent basis. Simple.